I went to the wrong wedding and found the love of my life. I was supposed to be at the Riverside Hotel at 2 p.m. for my college roommate's wedding. Instead, I walked into the Grand Ashford Estate at 2 p.m. because my GPS had other plans and I wasn't paying attention. The venues were both hosting weddings that Saturday, both had receptions in ballrooms with similar names, and both had guests arriving around the same time. I realized my mistake approximately 15 seconds after I sat down. The program in my hand said, "Celebrating the Union of Victoria and James." My college roommate's name was Nathan, and he was marrying someone named Allison. I looked around the room, not recognizing a single face. The smart thing would have been to stand up immediately, apologize quietly, and leave. Instead, I froze. An older woman in a lavender dress sat down next to me and smiled. "Bride's side or groom's side?" she asked. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. Then somehow I heard myself say, "Groom's side, old friend from work." The lie came out so smoothly I almost believed it myself. Why did I lie? I still don't know. Maybe because standing up and admitting I was at the wrong wedding felt more embarrassing than just sitting through a ceremony for strangers. Maybe because the woman seemed so happy to have someone to talk to. Maybe because I'm an idiot. "How wonderful," she said. "James is such a dear boy. I'm Victoria's Aunt Patricia. I don't think we've met. I'm Derek. I worked with James a few years back. We lost touch, but I was so happy to get the invitation." The lies were multiplying. Patricia launched into a story about how Victoria and James had met at a charity gala, and I nodded along like I cared, all while planning my exit strategy. I'd wait until the ceremony started, then slip out during the vows when everyone was focused on the couple. Simple, clean, no one would notice. Then she walked in. The woman who would ruin my entire plan and, eventually, my entire life, in the best possible way. She was late, clearly flustered, wearing a blue dress that looked hastily chosen. Her dark hair was pulled back in a way that suggested she'd done it in the car. She scanned the room frantically, looking for an open seat, and her eyes landed on the empty chair on the other side of me. She hurried over and sat down just as the music started. "Thank you," she whispered. "This day has been a disaster." I nodded, trying to look sympathetic while also trying to figure out if she was actually supposed to be at this wedding, or if she was another lost soul like me. Patricia leaned forward and smiled at her. "Hello, dear. I'm Patricia, Victoria's aunt. Are you with the bride or groom?" The woman's eyes went wide for just a fraction of a second. "Groom's side, old friend." The exact same lie I'd told. Patricia beamed. "How lovely. This is Derek. He also knows James from work." The woman looked at me. I looked at her. We both knew. We were both at the wrong wedding. The ceremony began, and we sat there in mutual silent panic. I could see her gripping the program so tightly it was wrinkling. Her leg bounced nervously. Every few seconds she'd glance toward the exit, then back at the couple at the altar, then at me. I was doing the same thing. We were trapped. Getting up now would draw attention. Patricia would ask questions. People would turn and look. It felt easier to just sit through it and leave during the reception when things got chaotic. Except the ceremony was beautiful. Despite being for two complete strangers, despite the absurdity of the situation, it was genuinely moving. Victoria cried during her vows. James's voice cracked when he said, "I do." The officiant told a story about love being found in unexpected places, and the woman next to me let out a small, almost silent laugh. I glanced at her, and she was shaking her head, her hand covering her mouth. After the ceremony, everyone stood and started moving toward the cocktail hour in an adjacent room. The woman grabbed my arm. "We need to leave. Right now." "Agreed. Let's just—" Patricia appeared beside us. "You two should come take photos with the wedding party. James would love to see his old friends." "Oh, we couldn't possibly intrude," the woman said quickly. "Nonsense. Come along." Patricia started herding us toward where the wedding party was gathering, and we found ourselves being pushed into a group of about 30 people all lining up for photos. The photographer was organizing everyone by relationship to the couple. "Okay, bride's college friends over here, groom's work colleagues here, family in the middle." The woman and I exchanged panicked looks. We ended up standing in the back row of a large group photo, both of us trying to look natural while internally screaming. The photographer took several shots, and I knew somewhere in the future, Victoria and James would look at their wedding album and see two complete strangers in their photos. After the photos, we finally managed to slip away from Patricia and meet near the entrance to the cocktail hour. "I'm Natalie," she said, "and I'm supposed to be at a wedding at the Riverside Hotel right now." "Derek." "Same. My college roommate Nathan is getting married, and I'm apparently at the wrong venue entirely." She laughed, a real laugh that made her eyes crinkle at the corners. How did you end up staying? I saw you were already seated when I got here. I panicked and told Victoria's aunt I was an old friend of the groom. Then I couldn't figure out how to leave without looking insane. I did the exact same thing. I told her the exact same lie. We stood there grinning at each other like idiots. We should definitely leave now, Natalie said. Absolutely. Right now. Neither of us moved. Although, she continued, I'm kind of starving and I saw they're serving appetizers in there. It would be rude to waste food, I agreed. And we're already here. We've already committed to the lie. Exactly. We might as well eat. We walked into the cocktail hour together. The past appetizers were incredible. Shrimp cocktail, bacon-wrapped dates, tiny beef Wellingtons that melted in your mouth. Natalie and I stationed ourselves near the bar and created an elaborate game of trying to blend in while avoiding anyone who might ask detailed questions about our relationship with James. There's Patricia at 3 o'clock, Natalie whispered. Abort. Move to the appetizer table. We relocated smoothly. A man in a gray suit approached us. Hey, how do you know the couple? Groom's side, old work friends, I said automatically. Oh, nice. Which company? My mind went blank. Natalie jumped in. The consulting firm downtown. We all worked together on the Morrison account. I had no idea if that made sense, but the man nodded and launched into a story about his own consulting days. We escaped after 5 minutes. The Morrison account? I asked. First thing that came to mind. Are you always this bad under pressure? Are you always this good at lying? She grinned. Only at strangers' weddings, apparently. We found a corner table and sat down, plates full of appetizers balanced on our laps. Around us, real guests mingled and laughed and celebrated Victoria and James's marriage. We were interlopers, wedding crashers by accident, and somehow it was the most fun I'd had in months. So, why were you late to Nathan's wedding? I asked. Flat tire on the highway. By the time I changed it and got back on the road, I was running 40 minutes behind. I just rushed to the first venue address on my phone without double-checking. She bit into a bacon-wrapped date. You? I blindly followed GPS and didn't look up until I was parked. Then I walked into the first ballroom I saw. I didn't even check the name on the door. We're both idiots. Complete idiots. She laughed again. I was starting to really like the sound of her laugh. A woman with red hair approached our table. I don't think we've met. I'm Claire, Victoria's college roommate. Natalie and I both straightened up. Derek and Natalie. We know James from work. Oh, lovely. Which department? Consulting, Natalie said smoothly. We worked together a few years back. Claire settled into the chair across from us. That's so nice that you came. Are you both staying for the reception? Wouldn't miss it, I heard myself say. Natalie kicked me under the table. What was I doing? Why wasn't I leaving? Claire chatted with us for another 10 minutes about wedding planning and how beautiful the ceremony was. And the entire time Natalie kept shooting me looks that said, we need to get out of here. But I didn't want to leave. Not yet. When Claire finally excused herself to find her husband, Natalie turned to me. Derek, we have to go. This is getting out of control. I know. We're going to get caught. Someone's going to realize we don't actually know James. I know. So why aren't we leaving? I looked at her. Because I'm having more fun at this wedding where I don't know anyone than I would at the wedding where I actually belong. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. Me too. We stayed for the full reception. Dinner was a plated salmon that was better than anything I'd eaten in months. We were seated at table 23 with other work friends of the groom, and we spent the entire meal making up elaborate stories about our fictional time at the consulting firm. Natalie invented a disaster project where we'd all had to work overnight for a week. I added a story about James spilling coffee on a client during a presentation. The other people at our table contributed their own real stories about James, and we nodded along like we remembered. When the dancing started, we retreated back to our corner table and watched. Victoria and James had their first dance to a song I didn't recognize. Her dress sparkled under the lights. Everyone looked so happy. They seem really in love, Natalie said. Yeah, they do. Do you think they'd be mad if they knew we were here? I thought about it. I think they'd probably laugh, or be very confused. Maybe both. We should get them a gift, to make up for crashing. Absolutely. What do you get people whose wedding you accidentally attended? Maybe a nice apology card. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching strangers celebrate. The DJ played upbeat music and people crowded the dance floor. Patricia danced past us with a man who was presumably her husband, and she waved enthusiastically. We waved back. This is insane, Natalie said. Completely insane. We're going to look back on this and not believe it actually happened. She turned to look at me. Are we terrible people? Probably. But like, in a harmless way. We're harmless, terrible people. Exactly. The DJ slowed things down and played a romantic song. Couples paired off and swayed together. Natalie watched them with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Do you want to dance?" I asked. She looked surprised. "At a stranger's wedding? We've come this far. Might as well commit fully to the insanity." She considered this, then stood up and held out her hand. "Okay, but if we get caught and thrown out, I'm blaming you." "Fair." We walked onto the dance floor and I put my hand on her waist. She rested her hand on my shoulder. We started swaying to the music, surrounded by people celebrating a marriage we had no connection to. "This is the weirdest first date I've ever been on," Natalie said. "Is this a date? I don't know. What else would you call this? A series of increasingly poor decisions?" She laughed and rested her head briefly on my shoulder. We danced through 2 slow songs before returning to our table. By 9 p.m., we'd been at the wrong wedding for 7 hours. I'd missed Nathan's entire wedding, ceremony, and reception. My phone had 6 missed calls from him and a text that said, "Where are you?" I showed Natalie. She checked her own phone and grimaced. "The bride at my wedding sent me a text asking if I'm okay. I feel horrible. We're the worst wedding guests in history. We didn't even go to the right weddings. Should we leave now? Finally?" She looked around the reception, at the fairy lights and the happy couples and the remains of the beautiful disaster we'd created. "Yeah, we probably should." We stood up and started walking toward the exit. We made it to the hallway before Patricia intercepted us one final time. "Leaving so soon? The night is still young. We have an early morning," I said. "Work thing." Patricia pulled both of us into unexpected hugs. "It was so lovely meeting you both. James will be so glad you came. You make such a sweet couple." "Oh, we're not," Natalie started. "Just friends," I finished. Patricia winked like she didn't believe us at all, then headed back into the reception. We escaped to the parking lot and stood under the night sky, both of us slightly dazed. "So," Natalie said. "So," I echoed. "That happened. That definitely happened." We stood there awkwardly. The moment felt significant somehow, like we were supposed to exchange information, or make plans, or acknowledge that this bizarre experience had created some kind of connection between us. But we were still essentially strangers who'd spent 7 hours lying to everyone around us. "I should probably get going," Natalie said. "Try to come up with an excuse for why I missed my friend's wedding entirely." "Yeah, same." Neither of us moved. Then Natalie pulled out her phone. "Can I get your number, in case I need someone to corroborate my story about the flat tire?" I gave her my number. She texted me immediately so I'd have hers. The text said, "Evidence we're both insane." I laughed. "Drive safe, wedding crasher." "You too." I watched her walk to her car, a silver sedan parked 3 rows away. She turned back once and waved. I waved back. Then she drove away, and I stood in the parking lot of the Grand Ashford estate, having just spent 7 hours at a complete stranger's wedding with another complete stranger, and I couldn't stop smiling. I texted Nathan an apology. He called immediately. "Dude, where were you? Everyone was asking about you. I had a flat tire. I'm so sorry. I'll make it up to you. Are you okay? You sound weird." "I'm fine. Just tired." "How was the wedding?" "Amazing. You missed everything. The ceremony was beautiful and the reception was incredible and—" He kept talking, but I was only half listening. I was thinking about Natalie's laugh, about dancing at a stranger's wedding, about the insane series of decisions that had led to the best night I'd had in years. When I got home, I had a text from an unknown number. "Did you survive Nathan's wrath?" I saved Natalie's contact and responded, "Barely. You?" "I told my friend I had a family emergency. I'm going to hell. We're both going to hell. At least we'll know someone there." We texted back and forth for an hour, then 2 hours. At midnight, she sent, "This is crazy, but I had more fun at the wrong wedding than I probably would have had at the right one. Same. We should probably never speak of this again. Probably. But maybe we could get coffee sometime? At a place we're actually supposed to be?" I stared at the text for a long moment. Yes. Definitely yes. We met for coffee the next Saturday, then dinner the week after that, then a movie. Then somehow we were spending every weekend together, and she was meeting my friends and I was meeting hers, and Nathan found out I'd missed his wedding because I accidentally went to someone else's, and he thought it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. 3 months after the wrong wedding, Natalie told me she'd tracked down Victoria and James on social media. I found their registry and sent them a gift, a nice set of wine glasses with an anonymous note apologizing for crashing their wedding. Did they respond? Victoria messaged me asking how we got their information and what we meant by crashing. I had to explain the whole story. What did she say? Natalie pulled up the messages and showed me. Victoria had responded, "This is the best wedding crasher story I've ever heard. You're both invited to our first anniversary party. I laughed. Are we going? Obviously. We have to. 6 months after the wrong wedding, Natalie and I were at a restaurant celebrating my birthday when she looked at me across the table with an expression I'd learned to recognize. It was the same look she'd had when we were dancing at Victoria and James's reception. What? I asked. I've been thinking about something. Dangerous. She kicked me gently under the table. I'm being serious. Okay, what have you been thinking about? She took a breath. Do you believe in fate? Like, things happening for a reason? I don't know. Maybe. Why? Because I was supposed to be at a different wedding that day. You were supposed to be at a different wedding. We both made the same mistake at the same time and ended up in the same place. And I don't think that was an accident. I reached across the table and took her hand. You think the universe wanted us to crash a stranger's wedding together? I think the universe wanted us to meet, and it had to get creative because we're both apparently too oblivious to meet the normal way. I squeezed her hand. So you're saying our relationship is built on a foundation of lies and wedding crashing? I'm saying our relationship is built on being in the right place at the wrong time. I can live with that. She smiled, and I remembered the first time I'd seen that smile, when she'd sat down next to me at a wedding where neither of us belonged. 1 year after the wrong wedding, we actually did attend Victoria and James's anniversary party. They greeted us at the door with huge grins. The legendary wedding crashers. Victoria pulled us both into hugs. We've been dying to meet you. Properly. We're so sorry about last year, Natalie said. We didn't mean to. Are you kidding? You made our wedding memorable. Everyone laughed when we told them the story. James grinned. Plus you're in our wedding album, forever immortalized as mysterious guests in the back row. We spent the evening with Victoria and James and their friends, and this time we didn't have to lie about how we knew anyone. We told the story of the wrong wedding over and over, and each time people laughed like it was the most ridiculous thing they'd ever heard, because it was ridiculous. The whole thing was absurd. At the end of the night, Victoria pulled me aside. Can I tell you something? Sure. The day of our wedding I was so nervous. I kept thinking about what if I was making a mistake, what if this wasn't right, what if I was supposed to be somewhere else. She looked across the room at James, who was laughing at something Natalie said. But then I saw all these people who came to celebrate with us, even 2 strangers who accidentally wandered in, and I realized that was a sign. Love isn't about being in the perfect place at the perfect time. It's about making any place the right place because you're there together. I followed her gaze to Natalie, who caught me looking and smiled. Yeah, I said, I think you're right. 2 years after the wrong wedding, I asked Natalie to marry me. We were at the Grand Ashford estate, standing in the parking lot where we'd said goodbye that first night. You're proposing in a parking lot? She asked, laughing and crying at the same time. I'm proposing at the place where we met. Technically, we met inside. We became real outside. This is where we stopped being wedding crashers and started being something else. She kissed me. Yes, obviously yes. But our wedding better not be at the Riverside Hotel or I swear, don't worry. I've triple-checked the venue. We got married the next spring. Nathan was my best man, and he spent the entire ceremony grinning because he'd gotten over me missing his wedding after I explained I'd been busy meeting my future wife. Victoria and James came as guests, and they brought our photo from their wedding album. They'd had it framed with a plaque that said, The Beginning. During my vows, I told the story of the wrong wedding. I told everyone how I'd walked into the wrong venue, sat in the wrong seat, and met exactly the right person. I told them about dancing with a stranger at a stranger's wedding, about 7 hours of beautiful chaos, about finding love in the most unexpected place. Natalie cried during her own vows. She talked about fate and wrong turns, and how sometimes the best things happen when your GPS fails, and you're running late, and you panic and make terrible decisions that turn out to be the best decision you ever made. After the ceremony, at our reception, at our wedding, we danced to the same song that had played at Victoria and James's wedding 2 years earlier. Do you ever think about what would have happened if one of us had left? Natalie asked. If I'd stood up during the ceremony, or you'd run out before sitting down? Every day. And I'm grateful we were both too awkward to make the smart choice. She laughed and rested her head on my shoulder, just like she had that first night. Me too. We danced surrounded by people who actually knew us, who were actually supposed to be there, celebrating a marriage that had started with a mistake and turned into the most right thing in my life. Later, someone asked us how we met. Natalie and I exchanged a look, and together we said, we went to the wrong wedding. Thanks for hanging out till the end. If you want more stories, make sure to subscribe and leave your take.